there, folks. I've been enjoying a few videos by a Norwegian survivalist and novelist historian called Bjorn Andreas Bull Hansen. And I thought that he had a very interesting video up about how bad for a man's mental health big city life is. And there's a bit of a story behind this, and it's a little bit similar to my trip down to London. And I came away with a lot of the same conclusions or similar conclusions, but I never really expanded on it. And Bull Hansen went down to sell his books, and he had to go to Frankfurt, he had to go to Amsterdam. And he found the experience of being in these big metropolitan cities completely traumatic. And what it was that how regulated this city was. There was two main things. The first was that how regulated the city was, and that there are so many restrictions on what you can do. And in actual fact, you've got none. The city moves along at a certain speed, and you're expected to keep up with the city. But then on top of that, you're constantly told where you can go and where you can't go. And then on top of that, there's no respect for a person's personal space. So Bjorn Hansen's saying that he has a meter or two around him, which is his space, and he doesn't want other people to intrude in it. And in the city, this is just a complete non-starter. You may end up sitting on a bus for half an hour with a complete stranger sort of lounging half across you or brushing up against you all of the time. And this, I think, is these constant infringements. What they speak to is that you don't have, in this scenario, a man is in a completely submissive role. In a natural state of man is for a man to impose his will on the world, even just in these small ways. What the city does is completely remove the possibility that a man can do that. And in fact, the man is just like a tinned sardine. He's just a fish or some sort of product to be processed by the machine, and he has to submit to that. It's a completely passive existence. Whereas even if you just go, say, walk across the Simonside Hills with your dog, or you're like Bull Hansen and you're going to go up to the Arctic Circle in Norway, it's actually completely different. It's the opposite. In that way, you're completely free to impose your will on the world. You can walk wherever you want. You can walk how fast you want. And as Bull Hansen says, you can urinate wherever you want as well. And I think that what this does, if you're in a city permanently, then I think the effect this has, because this becomes your normal routine, those normal traits are chipped away, slowly but surely chipped away, until you just learn to accept that you're going to be submissive in relation to this the system of the city and how it works. You'll just accept and put up with the fact that you're constantly being told where you have to go, how fast you have to be, that you can't go there, and if you get caught short, where you're going to go to urinate. There's all of these things which are putting you in this extremely passive, submissive role, which I don't think is natural for a man to be in. And that's what I really liked about his idea in the video, is because you then have to say, well, what is the natural state of man? Beyond the usual traditional ideas of family and being tough and all the rest of it. He's getting at something a bit deeper, and it is about having personal space and being able to express your will and genuine freedom. And it's astonishing, because when you in the freedom, people in cities, and they do tend to be more liberal, which is saying enough, but they do tend to think in terms of freedom. I am a free individual, and I fail to understand how, in what regard, a man who lives and works in a city and is there all the time and enjoys being in the city, I just don't see what kind of freedom he has. All of his freedoms are purely negative. So he can go to a bar and be a degenerate, and everything like that is on hand. He's got that. And if you're living in Northumberland in the hills and the Cheviots, or you're in the Norwegian wilderness, yeah, you don't have you don't have anything like that. You don't have any kind of luxuries at all. But the what you do have is freedom from things. Freedom from these liberal metropolitan types for a start. But really, I think what it speaks to is that when you're in the city, you just learn that you can't. You just have to submit. You just have to be passive, and the city will process you constantly. And if you're in the countryside, it's the other way around. Of course, if you're in the countryside and you slip and you break your leg, you're in a bit of trouble there. But this is part of it, I think. I think this is this is overcoming nature, whereas in the city is overcoming you, and you just have to deal with that fact. And I would say, Bull Hanson in his videos says it's going to be almost all men who are watching his videos, and it's going to be almost all men who watch mine as well. But I would say, if you're in the city, it may be that you're in a constant state of frustration, and sort of quietly angry, or because what you're faced with is a multitude of small frustrations every day, and it isn't, and you'll come to accept that, well, this is just the natural state of things. And this gets back to the point about, is this the natural state of men? And I genuinely don't think it is. I don't think that if you went to the doctors and you explained, well, I'm frustrated, I'm angry all the time, they'd probably just pump you full of drugs, because then they dislike the idea that it's the system itself that's at fault. And so a man will think, well, I'm constantly miserable, I'm constantly pissed off. And I've been to the doctors and he says, well, it's just me, and I need to exercise more, something like that. In actual fact, if you're in the city, it's very possible it's because every day is a multitude of small frustrations that you've just sort of absorbed and accepted into your daily routine. And I don't think it's a natural state of mind. I think it's something quite horrible. And the femininity, the feminization of it comes in to the fact that you've become just passive, and you constantly have this system impose itself on you, and you've just learned to accept it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that, and I've certainly felt that way when I spent the day or a few hours in London. And when you get out into the home country, the counties, the countryside, you genuinely can feel that relief, like somebody's taken a caliper off your head. But I don't think the cities are a natural habitat for men at all. So very, very interesting video there. I'll catch you later, folks.